As a quick aside before this video starts, these are my fresh thoughts. They're not fully articulated. I'm sure there may be things that do improve later, and I'm not trying to say that the game is bad. And my thoughts are definitely a little less thought out, but that's a first impressions for you. It's not a thought that I've sat on for, 3 weeks figuring out how I feel. This is just fresh, right off my mind. So, Code Vein 2 just came out in early access, and I've had about 24 hours with the game, so it's time for some first impressions. If you're interested to hear my opinions, or if you're curious if it's worthwhile to pick up on release, then you're in the right place. Here we go.
Hey, welcome back to the world of the living.
You'll be happy to know that I think the combat in this game is mostly improved from the original. If an element is not improved, it's about the same as the previous entry. I'll say that I don't think there's any massive change to the system itself. They do overhaul a few things, but it's very similar to the previous game. Outside of new weapons, the game offers the same combat with generally the same feel. There are minor differences like the fact that blood veils are now called jails, and the addition of forme as equipment, but combat itself is not all that different. So blood veils in this game work a little bit differently. Basically, they are now one thing. So whereas before you would have multiple blood veils with the same attack, so like Stinger, and you had like 19 different blood veils for Stinger, now there's just the one Stinger, and you get that, and that is the blood veil, so to speak. It is now limited more to a function as opposed to an equipment piece, if that makes sense. And there are some cool new ones like Bat and Scythe, but ultimately the overall function of it is just not that different. The main addition to the combat are the forme. These are additional weapons or equipment that you can use for offense and defense. I've found that the defensive ones are pretty useful and really where most of my time has gone into, whereas the offensive ones I'm not using them as much. So far I've gotten 2 of them, which are the bow and the axe. The axe is just too slow for my liking to use during combat, though it does give a pretty good AoE, whereas the bow is actually useful for picking off enemies from a distance. I won't lie and say that I haven't used it at all, I just don't find it useful in things like boss fights. One difference that I have from Code Vein 1 is that I think the bosses are better designed overall, if I had to say a general opinion about them. Code Vein 1's bosses are all really, really easy, outside of maybe Mito, I would say. And a lot of bosses had this problem where they're big enemies, so you can kind of just stand really close to them or stand next to them, and you're able to avoid all of their attacks. So the bosses in Code Vein 2, or at least the first major one, actually provides a level of friction and pushback. So I did actually have to learn how to parry some of his attacks to really get past him. But Code Vein 2's solution to the stand under the boss problem that Code Vein 1 had is to make the bosses have giant hitboxes on their moves, and whether you find that fun or not is up to you. Personally, I don't really like that as a solution. My general solution would just be to not make giant monster bosses, because I just don't think that really works for me from a gameplay perspective, but it is what it is. At this point, you probably get what I'm trying to say. It's that if you like the first game's gameplay and the first game's combat, you're probably going to like this one, though when it comes to exploration, there is a much deeper emphasis on exploration in this game. A few hours in, you'll obtain the motorcycle, which is really useful for traversing this brand new big open world. Oh god. So is there a point to the open world? Not really. I think the linear style fit Code Vein's design better. The open world provides a lot of space and a sense of adventure. I think the strongest argument I have for it is about the story, so we'll circle back to that later. The unfortunate part is that I just don't value the open world here. As someone who generally likes open world games, this game's open world just doesn't do anything for me. And it's just big open space for the sake of having big open space. So I would say that so far that the open world is okay. Like, it doesn't do anything extremely offensive. In fact, I don't think it does much at all. You may feel differently, but I think I just vastly prefer the smaller, more compact designed areas in Code Vein 1 over what this game is offering, which is a mix of those smaller, compact designed areas as well as this big open world. I just feel like I don't really need that. And you'll find an occasional extra dungeon worth exploring, but I'm genuinely getting a little fatigued from navigating the whole open world. I'm not a big fan of the interface in this game. I feel as though they tried to stylize it, make things pop, as all the games are trying to do nowadays, but the problem is that it feels like the compact style of the original made the UI more readable. Code Vein is already offering a lot of information when you go into the menus, and I don't think I'm a big fan of how big and in-your-face the UI is in this game. But after 20 odd hours, I am understanding the UI and getting used to it, so it's becoming less cumbersome than it was when I started. The game also has a favorite button. This part drives me a little insane. It's R1 or right button, depending on the controller you're using. This button is used for everything. Advancing dialogue, interacting with NPCs, progressing text boxes, progressing achievement prompts, collecting items in the overworld, opening chests. It is actually a problem at this point. When I'm trying to clear my screen of acquisition and achievement notifications, and at the same time there is text, their characters speak, and I click RB or R1 or whatever to remove that prompt, and then it advances the text, it advances the NPC to the next line that they're supposed to read instead of advancing the prompts on my screen that are taking up the whole fucking screen. Why? Like, why are these all mapped to one thing? And then it starts to get annoying because it doesn't even work consistently. Sometimes it will let me advance those prompts instead of the dialogue, and sometimes it won't. It'll just skip the dialogue. And then sometimes I'm out in the field and I'm like, ooh, shiny collectible, let's go grab it. And then I go to grab it, and then a character is having dialogue talking about something that's kind of important, and then you just press the button and it skips it. And it drives me a little bit insane because why would you map everything to this button? On top of that, why would you make NPC dialogue skippable when they're saying something kind of important? And it's the same button. And then sometimes you go to interact with an NPC, you have to press R1 first to interact with them, and then to advance their text box when they have multiple options to pick from, now you hit X or A, or whatever it is on your controller. The whole thing is just too crowded onto one button, and maybe there's a way to change it in the settings. I have not changed it because I just haven't felt like fumbling through the settings to see if there is one, because usually these things don't have those kinds of settings. Like, everything, when you remap the button, it remaps everything that's on that button to the new function. Whatever. I'm not a fan of that. It is just not fun to play around with.
Truly, the potential of man is beyond reckoning.
Now, of course, this is something you can try out for free, and I think it's well worth your time. Code Vein 2 expands on the first game's incredibly robust character creator. There are a wealth of options here, allowing you to create the character you want to play as. But you also cannot fully customize your character's nose or mouth, which is a little bit of a shame. I'm also not a big fan of the direction they've gone with the character designs in this game. Compared to the last, I do prefer the more generic anime character designs of the first, more than these ones with their very interesting proportions, so to speak. However, a bonus is that if you bought the Ultimate Edition for the costumes, is that the costumes are unisex, which is cool. Anyway, the character creator is great. I would like to customize the nose size and everything, though. It blows my mind that the mouth and nose size are two things that are not options, but you can customize like your character's height.
100 years have come and gone since the Battle of the Upheaval. And one day, when those heroes' strength is spent, this world will...
As for the story is I mean, this isn't really a spoiler because it's in the trailers. If you don't want to hear anything about the story, just skip to the end. Skip to the end of the video. The story is like a time jumping adventure. You're jumping through time, going to the past, changing things in the past, and coming back, and then it changes things in the present. And the cool thing about having an open world for that is that in theory, you get to see all those changes. And it kind of works. You see it more a little bit later into the game. Where I'm at, there's just been a change that actually does change the environment a little bit. But for the most part, talking to NPCs, you'll get like different dialogue, which helps world building, you know, because now the NPCs will interact differently and the situation has changed a little bit. It's kind of cool. But as for the story itself, I feel like the intro is kind of weak. There's a potential for some tension that gets dropped off very quickly. It felt like they were really trying to move along with this part of the story and not keep you locked in the introduction for that long. After that, I think the story starts to improve. I'm only what you would technically call 2 chapters in, but I think that this second chapter that I played is a lot better than the first, to be honest. I think it really kind of lets the characters develop a little bit more. And if you spend the time exploring the past with the open world, that does help. So that's another boon to the open world that I think has more to do with the story than the open world itself. So I'm hoping that it continues to get stronger the further I go, because that will really impact how I feel about the game as a whole. So what remains to be seen is how they progress from here. Ultimately, where I stand on Code Vein 2 as of this point, which is about 24 hours in, is that I'm having a decent amount of fun. I'm enjoying the game to an extent, but it's not like blowing my mind or anything. I was always very wary of Code Vein 2 because of how it is going to do like a time jumpy story. It can be a little rough. Some people may not like how many comparisons I'm making to the original, but as you know, I am a fan of God Eater, and Code Vein 1 was related to God Eater. And Code Vein 2, stepping away from that, was kind of a big disappointment for me, because part of the reason I was so invested in a sequel to Code Vein 1 is not just because of what happened in Code Vein 1, but also to tie it into the God Eater world. Because at the end of Code Vein 1, they leave, and now we're never going to get a sequel to that. So that's cool. You know, maybe there will be something in here, I don't know, but I'm going to assume that there isn't, because they've said that it's not connected. But overall, the game is not totally blowing my mind. I think overall I'm mixed on it as a whole. But I'm holding off on making final judgments. This is not my final opinion. My final opinion will be in the review I make, either in 2 weeks or a month down the line. It's going to be one of those two. I'm not sure, because it depends on how long it takes for me to finish the game. I do have a surplus of free time right now, but I don't know if I'm going to dedicate all of that to finishing Code Vein 2. And I don't know if I want to rush it either. You know, sometimes when you rush a game, your opinion is just not strong. Also, I've heard that there are performance issues on PC and maybe PS5. I personally have a pretty powerful PC, and there have still been occasional performance issues, and I've had a few hiccups in frame rates. But whatever. It hasn't been like a major issue, so for the most part, it's fine. The game has the potential to be good overall, and it just really depends on how the story plays out, and if they start doing some crazy bullshit with the bosses, which could happen, I don't know. So I think Code Vein 2 is fine so far. And you can let me know what you think in the comments down below, if you've played it, or if you haven't, if you're excited for it. You know, just start a conversation. As always, you can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things JRPG, Bandai, and Code Vein related. And that review will be coming in 2 weeks to a month, so you can stay tuned for that. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Excuse me, taking the back. driving lessons.